Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So, if you didn't know already, the Abomination Vaults Adventure Path for Pathfinder 2e is being converted over to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. So I thought now would be an excellent time for me to redo a video I did a long time ago on this channel, my very first video in fact, that covers the difference between these two systems. I will freely admit that I am biased towards Pathfinder 2e. I wouldn't be doing a Pathfinder 2e channel if I didn't think that it was the better system. However, I'm going to try my absolute hardest in this video not to be biased and cover these two systems objectively. If you're liking what you're seeing, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ding that bell, as well as check out the links in the description, especially if you want to donate to help those Ukrainian kids. With all that out of the way, let's dive in. First, let's talk about the death system in these two games. In 5e, you've got your death saving throw system. Basically, roll a DC 10 flat check, which is rolling a d20 with no bonuses or penalties. Get higher than a 10 3 times, you're good, you're stable. Get lower than a 10 3 times, you're dead. Rolling a natural 20 counts as 2 successes. Rolling a natural 1 counts as 2 failures. Pretty simple. However, there is a downside to having such a simple death system. There is absolutely no penalty in 5e for going down to 0 hit points multiple times. So, if you've got a cleric, a druid, or even a bard with the healing word spell, you can be extremely reckless with your hit points in 5e and be just fine. What does this do? This effectively, at least for me anyway, takes away the tension of combat. And that can definitely be a problem. If you don't know, Healing Word is a 5e spell that allows you to heal 1d4 hit points to any creature within 60 feet as a bonus action. That might not seem like much, but that little bit of healing, because of the way that the death system works in 5e, completely allows you to circumvent the death system, even in combat. Then we've got Pathfinder 2e's system of dying and wounded. Basically, if you go down to 0 hit points in Pathfinder 2e, you become dying 1 unless you were downed by a critical hit or a critical failure against a damaging spell. Then you become dying 2. Reach dying 4 and you're dead. Unless you have die hard, in which case, then dying 5 you're dead. However, anytime you lose the dying condition, you gain the wounded condition. Wounded conditions always have a value as well. You become wounded 1 whenever you lose the dying condition, unless you already had the wounded condition, in which case, then the wounded condition increases by 1. Whenever you go down to 0 hit points, you add your wounded condition to your dying condition. In other words, every time you go down to 0 hit points, you get closer to dying. Also, every time your turn comes around, when you have the dying condition, you need to make a flat check with a DC equal to 10 plus your dying value. So DC 11 if you're dying 1, DC 13 if you're dying 3. Success means that your dying value decreases by 1 and gets you closer to that dying 0, which is stabilized. Failure means your dying value increases by 1 and gets you closer to that dying 4 and death. A critical success decreases your dying value by 2. Critical failure increases your dying value by 2. So if you like a simple system that allows you to be reckless with your hit points, go with 5e. But if you don't mind a slightly more complicated system that actually has tension in combat, go with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, at least when it comes to the death system. The next thing I want to talk about is action economy. So, in 5e, you've got your move actions, bonus actions, and just standard actions. The downside to this is it's not as versatile. But there is an upside. You have to think a lot more about what you want to do with each of your types of actions in that system. For example, you need to decide, do you want to use your bonus action for extra attack? Do you want to use it for a spell? Do you want to use it for something else? Then you've got Pathfinder 2E's system of just actions. You've got 3 actions on your turn. Use them however you want. You want to cast a 2-action spell and then raise a shield? Go right ahead. You want to intimidate, move, attack? Sure. You want to attack 3 times at level 1? Go right ahead, but you're going to take penalties on that second and third attack. Overall, it's a lot more versatile than it is in 5e. However, there are problems with it as well. Starters, it's a lot hard to come up with what you want to do on your turn when you've got so many options. In fact, a lot of people coming from other systems try to do the same thing over and over and over again because it's easier than thinking of strategy, and they think it's more optimal. However, that is not what you should do with this system. One of the reasons recall knowledge is so important is because every enemy is going to have a different weakness. Take advantage of those weaknesses. But recall knowledge is a subject for another video. Let's talk about proficiency. In both systems, your proficiency bonus pretty much applies to everything you're proficient in. In 5e, you've got your flat proficiency bonuses based on class. What I find is that if you're going to play the same character, the same class, over and over and over again every time you pick up a character, you're probably going to remember what your proficiency bonus is at each level. However, if you're going to play multiple different classes every time you pick up a character, you're probably going to have to look it up. At the same time, though, then you've got Pathfinder 2E's system of trained, expert, master, and legendary proficiencies. Those are going to be the same no matter what. It's a little more complicated, but yes, they are going to be the same no matter what. If you're trained in something, you always know you're going to get 2 plus your level as a proficiency bonus to it. If you're an expert, you're always going to get 4 plus your level. Now, not only that, but if you look at the Pathfinder 2E character sheet, it's actually all right there in the top left corner. Just look at a Pathfinder 2E character sheet and it's right there. Very cool. Now it's time to talk about the layout of the books. The books for both of these systems are laid out pretty badly. But both systems also have websites where you can very easily look up what you need to know if you're a player. If you're a GM or someone like me who does videos like this, you need the books. But if not, you can definitely get the information you need online. Now it's time to talk about advantage disadvantage versus number crunching modifiers. I love 5e's system of advantage disadvantage. I think it's great. But I do wish they would have done some combination of the two instead of just making everything advantage disadvantage. Pathfinder 2E does have the number crunching modifiers. However, there are feats in that system that do give advantage disadvantage. The Inspired Stratagem Rogue feat is a perfect example. But that feat only works on certain checks and only for your allies. I do think 5e should have done something similar to that, but it is a good system. I think character design is probably going to be the deciding factor for a lot of you trying to decide between these two games. When I did this video before, I said that you've played one 5e Barbarian, you've played them all. However, that has changed. When Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's Cauldron came out, we got a lot more different types of barbarians. So, it's definitely catching up with the versatility of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Barbarian. However, I still think Pathfinder 2E has the edge when it comes to versatility, mainly because of the number of feats you can take in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You have a lot more options, whereas in 5e, you basically only have options of subclass. That being said, the Pathfinder 2e system does have the anathema system for the barbarian, which means you are limited on what you can do in the game if you play a barbarian, unlike in the 5e system. So keep that in mind. Now let's talk about another huge mechanic, which is feats. In 5e, what I don't like about feats in 5e is that, number one, they are incredibly unbalanced, and two, you have to give up an ability score increase just to take them. But that does balance it out. In Pathfinder 2e, everything is feats, so that is a little bit more complicated. It's simple in 5e, but complicated in 2nd Edition. Overall, everybody gets a feat every level, no matter what class you are. Rogues get more feats than anybody else because they get a skill feat every level, but everybody gets at least one feat every single level. I love how they divided it up into ancestry feats, general feats, skill feats, and class feats. That is a bit more complicated, though. But the other problem with 2nd Edition is that every time you get access to a new feat, you also get other options. If you really like 2 level 2 feats, you're gonna have to give up a higher level feat to take both. Free archetype does help out a little with this, and most Pathfinder 2e GMs do use it. However, it's not a optional rule that you should use with new players. Definitely not. Let's talk about skills. There's not a whole lot of structure when it comes to skills in 5e. And while that does give the GM a lot more freedom to decide how skills work, it also means it might be difficult for him to decide that. Pathfinder 2nd Edition has the exact opposite problem. There is a ton of structure in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. However, that does not mean there is no freedom when it comes to how skills work. It just means that the GM doesn't have as much freedom as they would in 5e. But at the same time, it also means that your GM is going to have an easier time coming up with skills, how skills work, because they are right there in the book. Alright, time to talk about magic items. I'm not going to sit here and criticize 5e for its de-emphasis on magic items. I get it. Magic items got way out of hand in other editions, especially 3.5. You need specific items to make your build good. But I think Pathfinder 2nd Edition did magic items well. I mean, sure, you're going to need your plus runes for your weapon and your armor, as well as your resilient and striking runes, no matter what class you are. And a champion is going to need a magic shield at some point. But they don't need a specific magic shield to make their build good. That's the difference. 5e decided to de-emphasize magic items completely. Pathfinder decided to do it a little bit differently and just make it so that most magic items aren't tied to a specific build. You guys decide. And finally, let's talk about multi-classing. 5e pretty much did it the exact same way that other systems do it. If you want a multi-class, you've got to give up everything that your first class gets at a given level. For example, if you're a wizard and you want to be better in melee combat, you have to give up your spells and every class feature that your wizard gets at that level. But in Pathfinder 2e, they were geniuses. They just made multi-classing feats. Class feats at that. You don't give up. If you want a multi-class, all you're giving up is a class feat. still get your spells, you still get all your wizard class features, you still get your skill feats, still get your general feats, everything else except your class feats. And if you want to be better at your multi-class, you just have to take more feats. You do have to give up your class feat, but that's it. Overall, I think Pathfinder 2e did multi-classing much better, and it's not as broken as people think it is. Free archetype isn't near as broken as people think it is. You almost never get everything you're going to get from that class. Plus, there are archetype dedications as well. Think of them as prestige classes, and they are a ton of those. Overall, I think Pathfinder 2e did it better here. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. So, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Which system are you playing? And let me know about anything that you guys think I should have covered in this video. And with that, remember, teamwork is vital, and I'll see you guys next time.